Hello everyone, welcome to The Old Man and the Read. My name is Jerry. Today I'm going to talk about another exceptional writer. She's, I think, probably my wife's favorite writer, and that's Willa Cather. Willa Cather was an American writer. She was born in 1873. And she happened to die on the day I was born, April 24, 1947. But just an incredibly good writer. Her family moved to Nebraska when she was 9 years old. And at the time, Nebraska was considered a frontier state. And so that pretty much included much of what she wrote. The subject matter took place in Nebraska. But after college, she became a writer, a journalist, and she wrote short stories and poetry. And she moved around several times, moved to Pittsburgh and to Washington, D.C., I believe, and Boston, but eventually settled in New York City. But just a really exceptional writer, and I'll show you the books that I've read and say something about them. The earliest book I have is O Pioneer, published in 1913. And this follows Alexandra, and Alexandra takes responsibility for her family's farm when her father dies. She takes it over, but the farm is in really dire shape, but she tries to do the best she can. Then the book jumps ahead a few years, and when we return to the story, she has become a successful, well-to-do farmer, and there's really no explanation that I could find that explained how she achieved that. But anyway, that's where the story starts again. The story that takes place is basically a little bit about a drama that she has with the relationship between her and her brothers, and it mostly becomes more of a romantic novel about her love for Carl. In 1915, she published The Song of the Lark, and this is slightly autobiographical, I think. It's about a young girl who is an artist growing up on the plains of Nebraska, and her name is Thea Kronberg, and she has a very strong musical talent that began at a very early age. She takes piano lessons from a really down and out musician, but then when she was 17, she received an inheritance from an unexpected source, and then her friend Dr. Archie arranged to take her to Chicago so she could use the money to study music. The next book, My Antonia, published in 1918, and this is about a man named Jim who's orphaned at a very young age, and he's sent to his grandparents who have a farm in Nebraska. As he grows up, he becomes acquainted with the families of the neighboring farms, and one of those families is the Shimerdas. And the Shimerdas have a daughter named Antonia. He's attracted to her, but really never pursues it. And then later he leaves for college and becomes a lawyer. And the years go by. He's in a loveless marriage. And meanwhile, Antonia is still in Nebraska. She gets married and has many children. And then 20 years later, Jim returns to visit, and he visits Antonia and her family. In 1922, she published One of Ours. This is a story that of a young man growing up on a Nebraska farm who's really fated for some really unfortunate events in his life. This includes a really tragic marriage and eventually going to war in World War I. It's an extremely well-written book, but I thought it really seemed to lack a lot of emotion. A lot of times when very life-altering, significant events happened, they were mentioned almost in a casual, offhand manner. The next book I have is Death Comes for the Archbishop, published in 1927. And this follows Bishop Latour and his assistant, Father Valiant. They're assigned to bring the Catholic Church to the Indians of the New Mexican desert. It's mostly a plotless story, and it's told mostly in little vignettes of various incidences. Incidences that happen over a 40-year period, basically. And that's the time they're in New Mexico up until the death of the bishop. And the last book I have to show is Great Short Works of Willa Cather, and this book was published in 1989. But it's just really a fantastic collection of 10 short stories. Some of them, the better ones that I liked, one titled Eric Hermanson's Soul. And this is about Eric, who belongs to a very strict evangelical church. He has secretly fallen in love with the sister of a friend who is visiting, and the last night of her visit, she asks Eric to dance with her. He does, but this is forbidden by his religion, and the minister tells him that his soul is now condemned to hell. The next story I'll mention is A Wagner Matinee. This is about a young man's aunt who comes to visit him in Boston. She had moved to Nebraska 30 years before and moved from Boston to Nebraska. And he then takes her to a concert similar to ones she had seen, 30 years before. The next story I'll mention is The Bohemian Girl, and this is about a young man who returns to visit his mother's home after 12 years. And his purpose for the visit was to basically reclaim the girl he had left years before, who is now married to his brother. But those are the books I've read by Willa Cather, quite an exceptionally good writer. I'd like to thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again on another video. Thanks.